The dappled light of Sherwood Forest was shattered by the unmistakable glint of polished mail. The Sheriff of Nottingham walked alone, his black cloak parting the ferns as if they dared not touch him. He stopped a stone's throw from the great oak, where Robin Hood, alerted by bird calls, already stood with an arrow nocked. In a rustle of leaves and a chorus of curses, the merry men materialized, forming a protective, bristling wall around their leader. Yet the sheriff seemed unnervingly calm. He leaned casually against a beech tree, examining his perfectly manicured nails as if the drawn bows were mere bothersome flies. "Not right now, boys," he said, his voice a lazy drawl. "I come under a flag of parley, for now." Reluctantly, at Robin's slight nod, the bows were lowered, though eyes remained narrowed and hands stayed on sword hilts. "Speak your piece, Sheriff," Robin demanded, his green eyes sharp. "What brings the wolf so brazenly into the den?" The sheriff pushed off from the tree, his smile thin and humorless. "A challenge, Hood. A final one. An archery contest. 1 arrow apiece. No tricks, no armies, just your skill against mine." He let the forest silence hang before continuing. "If you win, I retire. I leave Nottingham forever, a broken man. But if I win," he paused, savoring the words, "you become my property, my personal prisoner. You will work for me, forever. You will collect taxes from the very same wretches you champion. You will break their spirits with your own 2 hands. From his cloak he produced a scroll. "I've taken the liberty of drawing up the paperwork. I've already signed my name, as you will see." Robin's smile was swift and arrogant. He strode forward, snatching the quill the sheriff offered. "You've just signed your own exile," he boasted, scrawling his name with a flourish. "I could beat you blindfolded on my worst day." The sheriff remained preternaturally calm, even allowing a small private smile to touch his lips as he watched the ink dry. With a courtly nod, the sheriff re-rolled the contract. "We shall meet at the tournament grounds at dawn, 2 days hence. Farewell, gentlemen." He turned and disappeared back into the forest, the unsettling quiet of his departure more chilling than any bluster. The moment he was gone, the clearing erupted. Little John clapped Robin on the back, his laughter booming. "The fool! He'll never play it straight. He'll have a trick, a hidden crossbowman, a fortified target." The others joined in, crowing about the sheriff's coming humiliation. Robin held up a hand, his own confidence gleaming. "I don't think so. The sheriff is too proud for that. His vanity is his armor. He actually believes he can win." Then Robin's grin turned wicked. "But I am not so proud. He expects a contest of pure skill. I intend to give him a lesson in reality. If there is a trick to be played, we will play it first. We will ensure his arrow finds the mud and mine finds the gold. I will humiliate him completely." The merry men shared another, more raucous laugh, already plotting, a loosened bowstring for the sheriff, a doctored quiver, a distracting flash at the crucial moment. Victory seemed not just likely, but assured. Back in his lush quarters in Nottingham Castle, the sheriff unrolled the contract once more. The firelight danced over Robin's bold signature. He laid the parchment on his desk reverently, smoothing its edges. Then he began to laugh. It was a soft, ominous sound that echoed in the stone chamber, devoid of mirth and full of chilling certainty. He laughed as a man who had not wagered on an archery contest, but on the unshakable arrogance of his enemy, and who knew, with cold and perfect clarity, that the trap was already sprung.
The tournament grounds thrummed with a feverish energy. peasants and merchants, nobles and beggars, all pressed together under the summer sun, their allegiance a palpable wave of support for the man in Lincoln green. Robin Hood stood at the mark, raising his bow to a deafening roar. He glanced toward the shaded pavilion where the sheriff observed, sipping wine, his expression unreadable. In a breathtaking act of pure hubris, Robin turned to face the crowd. He closed both eyes, a showman's grin on his face, and drew his bowstring back by feel alone. The crowd held its breath. He loosed the arrow. It sang through the air and struck with a solid thwack, a hair's breadth from the dead center of the bullseye. A collective gasp, then an explosion of cheers shook the field. It was an impossible shot, a legend made flesh. Robin opened his eyes, feigning modest surprise at his own near perfection. He gave a theatrical bow, his gaze flicking to the sheriff, expecting to see panic or fury. Instead, the sheriff merely set his goblet down and stood, applauding with slow, measured claps that were swallowed by the crowd's din. He walked to the mark with the calm of a man taking a stroll. The sheriff nocked his arrow, his movements efficient and devoid of flair. He drew, his form impeccable. But his aim, visible to the keenest eyes in the front row, was off. Deliberately, subtly off. He was aiming not for the center, but for the outer ring, just below the bullseye. He had anticipated Robin's treachery from the start. Robin, confident in his scheme, gave the secret signal, a slight scratch of his ear. High in the oak tree overlooking the target, concealed by dense leaves, Maid Marian saw it. Her heart heavy with conflict, but loyal to Robin's cause, she pulled the cleverly hidden string. A mechanism within the target frame shifted, sliding the painted bullseye a few crucial inches downward. The sheriff's arrow was already in flight. It flew true to where he had aimed, which was now, suddenly, the direct center of the newly positioned target. The arrow struck with a definitive, cruel thud, dead in the heart of the bullseye, shaving a splinter of Robin's own arrow in the process. A profound, bewildered silence crashed over the crowd. The people stared, their minds struggling to process the impossible. The sheriff had won. Not just won, but had matched Robin's blind shot with one of open-eyed surgical precision. Then, from the noblemen's section, a few stunned claps began, growing into a hesitant, then rolling wave of applause from those who had bet against the outlaw. Robin Hood stood frozen, his blood turning to ice. His triumphant smirk had shattered, replaced by a mask of dawning horror. He looked from the target, a monument to his own downfall, to the tree where Marian was hidden, her hand clasped over her mouth in despair, and finally to the sheriff. The Sheriff of Nottingham did not cheer. He simply lowered his bow and turned to face Robin. His eyes, cold and glittering with intelligence, met Robin's. In that gaze was no surprise, only a deep, vindicated certainty. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, acknowledging the trap that had been sprung, not by him, but for him. "The terms of the contract are clear," the sheriff announced, his gesture to his guards, who for the first time stepped forward without fear into the midst of the merry men. "Robin Hood is now property of the crown, and specifically of my office. Seize him." As the cold iron manacles were clasped around Robin's wrists, the sheriff retrieved the contract from his chamberlain. He unrolled it beside the target, the official seal gleaming in the sun next to Robin's own flamboyant signature, a signature that now bound him to a fate worse than death. The crowd watched, their hero undone, as the Sheriff of Nottingham claimed his prize.